There we go. Okay. Welcome to the July 14 Jakarta EE update call. I'll walk you through a couple of things that are happening in the community, and also, I'll show the agenda here. And feel free to just stop me and ask questions if you have any on the way. So I'll just briefly go through the upcoming tech talks we have in the pipeline and the Jakarta One live streams. Then I'll dive into some possible scenarios for the new Jakarta EE core profile and some pointers to where to connect with us and that kind of things. So as you probably know, on Meetup, we have the Jakarta EE Tech Talks. We run them on Crowdcast. And if you cannot attend them live, you can watch them on the YouTube playlist afterwards. And all these links will be published afterwards. So you can click on them. And all the tech talks are published on the community calendar. So that's where you find them. In the pipeline right now, we have in August, a couple of talks, one by Steve Millage on Jakarta concurrency, and also one on Jakarta REST by Santiago. And there potentially could be one in late July as well. So just keep an eye on the community calendar and see what's happening there. You can also, of course, do a tech talk yourself. It doesn't have to be a Jakarta content. It's good that it's related to Jakarta EE, but it's any technical topic that is in the sphere of business that we are, or technology that we're working on. So you can use this sign-up form, and it's also accessible from the Jakarta EE webpage, but you can use the link in this slide as well, and just sign up for a tech talk, and we will schedule it for you. We also have the Jakarta One Livestream events, and these are in different languages. And upcoming in August, we have a Turkish one in August 21st. And then following that in September, October, we have a Portuguese edition and a Spanish edition. And all of these are working on creating the schedule. So the call for papers are up, at least for the Portuguese and Spanish. I think the Turkish has closed now. But if you have a talk or want to talk in Portuguese or Spanish, do submit their call for papers, and you can get accepted to this conference. And it's usually pretty well attended, and you can get it in your local language. And of course, we have the main event in December, on December 7th. And the call for paper for this event, this will be in English. And the call for paper for this event will start tomorrow. So just sharpen your pencils or keyboards or whatever you use to submit your abstracts, and go in to the jakarta1.org website, find the CFP, and submit your talk.
Hey, Ivar, don't forget that all the previous Jakarta One live stream talks are recorded, and you can play them back at any time and they're all in their native languages.
Yes, they are. They are on the YouTube channel. They can be played back on Crowdcast, and I think as well on the Jakarta One website. So you can find the links everywhere and play them back, and they're there for you to enjoy. The next topic I was planning on going through is Jakarta EE core profile. And at times very well, I think it's Kevin coming in here. So I'll walk you through some thoughts we have working on the Jakarta EE core profile. And first, why are we doing this? And one of the reasons is that if you look at, this is a very suggestive proposed how the Jakarta E10 platform could look like with the associated versions, and be aware everything here can change. We're currently discussing whether MVC should be a part of the platform or not. And the others are also, all of them are up for discussion, but this is one scenario of how Jakarta EE platform could look like. And as you see, there are lots of specifications here. And all these specifications are implemented by various vendors. And I've listed the Jakarta EE 9.1 platform compatible. And you can see that it's the usual suspects of application servers here. I have Glassfish and ManageFish and OpenLiberty, Payara, and Wildfly. And there are more to come. I'm sure that this list will be bigger every day as we go. So if we take these specifications and look at some of them here that have grayed out, that are more of the let's call it the enterprise things, like the mail messaging and batch specification, for example. And if we take these out, the set of specifications are a little smaller. And this is the Jakarta EE web profile. And as I said with the previous slide, this is just a suggestion of how the 10 web profile could look like. But you can see it's a smaller set of specs. And if we look at the implementations here, it's more or less, this is the 9.1 version. It's more or less the same application servers as we had with the platform. You can see Apache Tommy has come in here. They implement the web profile. So they are kind of benefiting from having a smaller set of specs to implement, so they don't have to do everything. So if we take the ones I've grayed out here that are more targeted towards creating web applications and web UIs, so like the faces and servlets and server pages and that kind of things, and grade these out and take these away, we're left with a set of specifications that are targeted towards creating headless services or microservices, if you like. And this is a very suggestive suggestion for how Jakarta EE 10 core profile could look like. And since this is a significantly smaller set of specs, and you can also see that there is a new specification on the bottom here called config. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that later, as well as the CDI Light, which is a new flavor of CDI that I'll also go into a little bit more detail. But since we now have shrinked from the large platform to the web profile, and then even further down to the core profile, we open up the possibility for having smaller products potentially being Jakarta EE compatible. And I've just listed a couple of examples here that could be potential core profile compatible, like Helidon, Quarkus, or even Micronaut. So the core thing about the core profile, pun intended actually, is targeting smaller runtimes. And let's look at how we're doing that by looking at a couple of the specs. And let's first look at config. And the new spec for Jakarta Config, which will be very much influenced from microprofile config. It may possibly end up being microprofile config that becomes Jakarta Config, or however that project team decides to solve it. They are discussing the goals and non-goals for the specification now. But what the thing about the config is to create portable configuration from environment-aware sources. And you can find details on this on the Jakarta EE /specifications/config. And this is how a config may function. Like if I inject a config property called place here, and I'm using in the down right corner, like a property file, where the value of the property is property file world, then the value of place would be getting this this value. If, for example, I put it in a container where I have an environment variable called environment world, this would override the property file. So you can see that it would be an environment-specific configuration of this particular property. And the same way, I can also override this one by having a system property, for example, given to me by a container management system like Kubernetes. And you can also possibly, if we go down the road that Microprofile Config are doing, you will be able to create your own sources that would be able to come in between these defaults or even override them. It's not even necessarily these 3 levels that will be of Jakarta Config, but that's pretty likely. So if we look at CDI Light, the CDI is a pretty mature spec. It's been around for a while. And the goal of CDI Light is to design it to be able to work in more restricted environments. And I'll go into details on the next slide about what we mean about that. And you can find details about CDI on Jakarta EE/specifications/CDI. And some of the things that are being discussed in the CDI projects is to create a new extensions API and modify the beans XML behavior a little bit and some other things. And the purpose for these changes is to enable ahead of time compilation using technologies like GraalVM to create compile to native images if you want to do that. So to remove some of the dynamic features of CDI, take it out of the CDI Light, and CDI Light is expected to be a subset of CDI Core, which should be a subset of the CDI Full, or whatever they end up calling these different flavors of CDI. If we look at Jakarta RESTful Web Services, the goal for the 4.0 version there is to potentially use Jakarta Config if that's available when the specification is written, so you can configure your REST application using Jakarta Config, and also align it with CDI Light, and also align it with CDI traditionally. And you can find information about this one under Jakarta EE/specifications/RESTful WS. And one of the things they want to do in Jakarta REST 4.0 is to get rid of their custom injection mechanisms. Like if you're used to writing RESTful endpoints and you want to have access to the URI info in order to build some URIs, for example, today you have to use the @context to inject this property. But by enabling and making it CDI friendly, you will be able to use the @inject from CDI or Jakarta inject and inject the URI info directly. So the JSON specifications for processing and binding are planning on doing smaller updates and doing community wanted features to make life easier for a programmer. So there are not very big changes going on there. As you can see, there are minor releases, so they will just adjust and yeah, make life easier, more or less. There are also 3 kind of pretty stable specifications there for dependency injection interceptors and annotations. And these are, as far as I know, not any plans for doing anything for Jakarta E10. So they will stay as they are for Jakarta E9.1. Potentially, this is also me just guessing. If we end up creating a jar for the core API, it would probably look something like this. So beside the core profile, we're also considering other things for Jakarta E10. And one of the things we are looking at is the Java SE versions, and we've actually made some decisions here, and that the APIs will be they will be compiled to a Java SE 11 source level. They can still stay on Java SE 8 if you don't do any changes, but we don't want to allow them using any higher than Java SE 11. So the API source level and the binary level of Jakarta E10 APIs would be Java SE 11. We also want to make it possible that the TCK can run with anything from Java SE 11 and above, as long as it's possible, and there are no breaking changes in the Java SE versions to come. And this means you as a Java developer or an app developer creating applications using these APIs, as long as your implementation are supporting, for example, Java SE 17 features like records or whatever, you can use them as long as the runtime you're using is supporting SE 17 and has run the TCK on Java SE 17. Then you're good to go with Java SE 17. So even though we were kind of restricting the APIs to be using only Java SE 11 features, it won't restrict you for using any newer versions. Another thing we're discussing is how are we going to have a release cadence? Will it be a time-based release cadence, like once a year, once 3 year? Should we tie it to the Java SE LTS versions, or how are we going to do this? And that's something we are currently discussing pretty vividly in the platform project. So please do join our calls there if you're interested. We've also started work of decoupling the TCK, so each project, each specification project can take responsibility for their own TCK, and the TCK team will pull it together, and so we will still be able to run the platform and profile TCKs. So that was the core profile. Any questions on core profiles or comments?
Hi.
I'm
Sorry, I have a question about core profile is similar to macro profiling, but both of them use the config and CDI Light. Is this true?
So the specifications that core profile will consist of is mapping pretty much directly to these specifications from Jakarta EE that microprofile depend on. So it will be a baseline to have microprofile APIs built on top of. So that is one of the ideas behind it, yes. But it's not any competing profile or anything that is replacing anything. It will provide the core Jakarta EE APIs that microprofile can depend on. And this opens up for having a test suite that tests the core profile. Then microprofile can actually adopt this test suite. And if they want to, they can say that in order to be microprofile compatible applications, you will have to pass this test suite if they want to. They can also say that, hey, we want to be Jakarta EE core compatible as well, and pass the core test suite there. So that is it aligns very well with the how the world looks today. So it's more of a grouping of the specification.
I have a question because if I develop on micro profile, I can migrate to core profile, or if I develop project on core profile, I can move it on micro profile.
Well, you don't have to think that way. And if you're developing for microprofile, that's all you have to think about. You don't have to think about core profile at all, because that is something that is just handled underneath. So it's actually nothing you have to be worried about at all, because it will be handled underneath just as it is done today. So there is no switching between them or deciding anything for you. It's just making life easier for you, because you can be even more sure that you can move your application from one implementation of microprofile to another one.
Okay, I got it.
So I'll have a couple of closing slides, and since you're all here, you all know this, but since we've been recorded, I'll just reiterate it. So why should you get involved in open source, and why should you get involved in Jakarta E in particular? And first of all, it's to gain a better understanding of the technology. If you're a contractor or a consultant working with Jakarta E technology, what better way of selling your competence to a potential customer is to say that, hey, I'm actually developing the technologies you're using. So it's a selling point. You can work with and learn from the industry leaders, the people that are creating the technologies. You can work with them and learn from them. And you can build your reputation in the community. You can build a name for yourself by being a committer on one of these projects, showing that, hey, I'm here. So, and also, of course, you can impact the course of the technology. So if you want something moving in a certain direction, put your efforts in there and you can make it move. So advance your career. That's why you should getting involved in open source. And it's pretty easy to contribute to Jakarta E. The only thing you need to do is to sign the Eclipse contributor agreement. And that's all you need to do. It doesn't cost you anything. That's the main path of getting involved. The Jakarta E developer survey closed a month ago or so. And the marketing team is working as fast as they can to provide a report coming out of this survey. So it will be coming up soon. You can connect with us in multiple ways through the mailing lists, look at the upcoming events and community news in the community calendar, communicate through GitHub issues and pull requests, and also we have a Slack workspace you can join. We're blogging a lot here and there, and also we're doing Jakarta Tech Talks and Jakarta One live stream. And of course, we're on all social media, so follow us on Twitter or Facebook or what your favorite social media platform. This is a QR code for the list of all the mailing lists. So this is where you can subscribe to them. We have a YouTube channel. So this is where you can see this talk. So if you're already seeing YouTube, obviously already found it, but this is the QR code to find back to it. So yeah. Thank you very much for listening. That's what I had. I'll take some comments or questions if anyone has any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then
thanks, Ivar.
yeah, I'll stop the recording.
Thank you. Thank you.